This morning's Parsha is Parsha Lekh L'kha, and there's a little ma'amar, a little quote from Harav Chaim Sofer, Rabbi Chaim Sofer, who lived from 1821 to 1886, and was born in Pressburg in Hungary, and lived most of his life in that part of the world. And he's commenting on one of the opening verses wherein God promises to Abraham, "Ve'escha l'goy gadol," I will make of you a large nation, a great nation. And he goes on to say, Oto Uma, it's that same nation about whom the Torah speaks near the end of the Torah, in Sefer Devarim, Ki mi goy gadol asher lo Elohim krovim elav. Who is like you, a nation that is great or abundant, in whose presence and who lives in God's presence? Essentially, the verse in Devarim is read by Rabbi Chaim Sofer as almost a comment on the verse in this week's Parsha, where if now Abraham is being promised a great nation, great both in number and in accomplishment, the verse in Devarim is almost asking the question, so what is it that makes you so successful? And the answer is in its being close to God. Anima amid mimcha, God, Rabbi Chaim Sofer is now saying that God is saying to Abraham here that the essence of the blessing that I'm giving you is that the nation that will emerge from you is not going to be great because of its kamut. It's not ultimately going to be great because of its numbers. Ella al ha'ichut. It's going to be abundant because of its proximity to God. When I make you into this great nation, asher lo Elohim krovim elav, wherein they are close to God, zohi gedulatan shel Yisrael. This is really the mark of greatness. And so it seems to me that what God is promising is not so much a promise as it is a challenge. What will be the measure of greatness by which the Jewish people, the descendants of Abraham, will be measured and acknowledged for centuries, millennia in the future? It will in fact be by the degree to which we, the descendants of Abraham, have been able to preserve, maintain, and pass along our sense of closeness to God. And that's really what the entire Jewish endeavor is ultimately about. It's what the underlying purpose of every Jewish activity is about. The building of a sukkah, which at some point mine will have to come down if it ever stops raining. But the building of the sukkah is not just to celebrate the past, but it's to go into that place and look up through the schach and see the stars and feel that sense of being in God's presence and fulfilling God's commandment. And that's true when we drag ourselves shlufadik, a little sleepily, to minyan in the morning, or when we interrupt our activity later in the day to come and do evening minyan. It's when we study Torah. It's when we find, or not just find, but when we make the time to engage in the myriad of Jewish activities. It's not just simply for the sake of that activity, but it's because all of those activities are designed to try and bring us closer to God, and therefore be the worthy inheritors of the promise that God makes to Abraham.
Thank you.